Hey everybody, welcome to Let Your Art Out. So I'm doing the Oddball CCC 127 featured project, which is late because I had technical difficulties. So here I have the pumpkins from the set of digital images. Again, that's this week's weekly image, I guess you would call it. Anyhow, I've resized them, and I print them out, and usually I'll put as many pieces on a piece of paper as I can so that I have them to use later, or like usual, I make a mistake and I need another pumpkin, and then I don't have to go in and reprint it, etc. So I have a file that I just keep all these images that I don't use in, and then I'll go through that every now and then and color some images. So doing the pumpkin, and my typical way of doing this is, kind of like watercolor. Dip the brush in the water, grab a very tiny amount of paint, and then dip it in water again, and then just spread that color. And yeah, so that's what I'm doing here, using Dylusions Paints. And forgive me for some of the questionable camera shots here. I just rearranged my office and had to move my camera, so I haven't gotten adjusted to where it can be positioned or not, and the lighting is a little crazy. So this is sped up, obviously, because I know I've never seen anybody in real life that can paint like this. But yeah, so doing another pumpkin. I'm trying to do each of the pumpkins a little bit different, just for variety, interest. So this one is actually going to be based with red, and so it's going to be a little bit of a darker pumpkin. And something you might see on here that you've never seen before is a pumpkin bat. I was going through my images and I saw the Frankenstein bat, and I wrote down what image it was, but now I can't find it because I've rearranged my office some more. But yeah, it's the one of these pumpkins that I just put on top of the Frankenstein pumpkin bat, and you can probably see his little spark plugs or whatever those things are coming out of the side of his head on this image. I just cut it out when I fussy cut it. So just adding some dark brown in this and giving it a little shadow. Like I said, I like making things interesting. That one's not so interesting, but the other two, I really like how they turned out. So now I'm going to do the stems. Again, sorry for this going off camera here a little bit. Just adding that color to the darker color to all the stems to get the shadow, where the light wouldn't be. And here's where I realize I'm not on camera and adjust it. Then going for my lightest. So typically what I do when I'm painting is I go medium color first, then I go light color, and then I go dark color to kind of add in where it needs some, which is, I think, a little different. I think most people either go light to dark or dark to light, and I tend to go medium, light, dark. Breaking the rules. So the pumpkins, I think, are done. So I'm going to start on the hat. This is my favorite red combination, is using this pomegranate color. It's like a purpley red. I like to put that on first, and spread it out and then put the color over. So when I do only 2 colors, which this hat is only 2 colors, I do dark to light. So I guess I am normal sometimes. Really love these images. They're so much fun. So many things we can do with them. And I never really actually, I joined Oddball, what, a year or 2 ago, and I didn't really use them a whole lot. The only time I used them was for the images or for special, occasions, like a swap for Halloween, 31 days of Halloween, like an advent calendar. I used a bunch of Lizzie's images for the Christmas advent calendar ATCs. That's 25 ATCs that we'd make and send. I used them as well. And I didn't use them very often after that. I just couldn't figure out how to make it worth my time to, find the image, resize it, cut it out or whatever, for every project I was doing. And that's when I came up with the idea of, okay, well, just print out a bunch of images, and then save them, and there you go. You've got them all printed out, and you can just look through this file and see which one you want to use. So here I'm at in the red. So I really, really like how that, this pomegranate looks behind that red. It makes that red pop. And then some shadows there underneath the ribbon. And when I'm doing this, I don't anymore. I used to be, I used to pay a whole lot of attention to, the light source and making sure I have the shadows in the right place, etc. But anymore, I just, kind of want to show dimension on the actual pieces or the images versus worry how they're going to go into a project. So when I do these, I usually just pretend like the light source, I just do it however I feel. It makes sense, I guess, so the ribbons, obviously I'm putting the darker black where there's, definitely they're overlaying or etc. I just do whatever makes sense. Or sometimes, too much paint goes on and I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's going to be dark. I'm not a technical painter by any means. I just do what I think is interesting, what I like. So there's that little pumpkin bat that I'm doing. Yep, you can see the little spark plugs behind the bat ears. I fussy cut those out so you don't see them when they go back in. Thought that was kind of an ingenious piece. So again, just looking at each image individually and doing what makes sense, right? So the ribbon is bent over the hat, so anything under the hat's going to be darker. Anything that's protruding up is going to be lighter. Just doing what I think is best for the image, not paying attention necessarily to where a light source might be coming from. And there we go. Then I go back later. I think I must have done it off camera. I go back later and I color in the little stitch, the the lacing on the hat with a black pen, and then I also add eyes and a vampire mouth to the pumpkin bat as well. So here, people are probably going, what the heck are you doing? So I decided that I wanted to kind of show a little bit of dimension on the pup. So I'm not coloring the ears on the main one, but am coloring the ears on the other image. And I'm going to cut just the ears out on the colored one and then just glue them on top. And it makes it kind of protrude ever so slightly. Brings them out just a little bit. Again, it's just something I think is a little interesting. I did another project right before this with this pup, and I did it totally different colors, so I'm just making this up as I go here. It's pretty funny, actually, how many different ways you can do an image and it still turn out really cute. So this is Zombieland, right? Oddball Land. I'm like, okay, well, this little guy's probably green somehow. I don't know how he gets green. Maybe he's moldy from sitting in the garbage. I don't know. But I thought, hey, let's put some green on him. Again, let's make it interesting. So, tongue is collar and stem on the bat, pumpkin bat. And now the final piece is just doing the skull. Nothing fancy on the skull. I just used pretty much one color on it. Yeah, nothing fancy. I thought the way that the brush strokes went, it kind of gave it that shading without adding colors. So I knew I needed a moon or something to go on that back panel. So I'm just adding in, different layers and interest and things like that. I didn't really care for how orange this was, so I brought in that unbleached titanium. Drinking my coffee. That isn't alcohol, it's coffee. And then just, I don't know, just throwing that on top of it. Again, I'm not technical, I just like interest. I like different. So now let's make the base of the card. So you take an 8x10 and then you cut it in half. I think if you're a card maker, you have done this a million times. And now you're going to add a slot or a slit, whatever you want to call it, by 2 inches over, and then it's like 5 inches. And having that mini cutter makes it so much easier to do. If I didn't have the mini cutter, I probably would have just cut it here on my scoreboard. So with the scoring, the first 3 scores are only to the cut line, and then the one in the middle, the 4 1/4, that is done all the way across. That's where the actual card folds. So in order to fold the steps here, it's a lot easier if you just, pop out that side, and then it can bend a lot easier. So I'm looking at it and I'm going, wait a minute, for some reason, my eyes didn't like, my brain, I'm not sure if it's my brain or my eyes, didn't like that the side was on the right. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I get this to go on the left? And I just flipped it over and then refolded the steps, and now I have the side on the left. Okay, so now, it used to be a long, long time ago, and probably thousands of dollars in paper that is sitting here in my curio cabinets. I used to do all my mats with just with fancy paper. Print, I don't even know what I would call it. I lose my words all the time when I'm on these videos. I don't know why that is, but paper pads, the paper from the paper pads, decorating paper. That's all I ever used to use. But now that I've gotten a little bit more confident, I'm using white paper a whole lot more, and I'm creating my own backgrounds to make it look a little bit more natural versus, having pumpkin background or bat background or whatever background. So I like to do pretty much everything in white cardstock, and then I decorate it myself versus using the paper. So now I have, like I said, I probably have at least 100 pads of paper, that I don't even use anymore, which is really sad, especially since it's taken up a lot of space. So, one thing I wanted to say was that this is a tutorial. I followed this tutorial, and I'll have a link to this added into the corner that you can click on, and also in a description to the original tutorial that I did, or that they did. And I did it a little bit different than what she did, so it is what it is. So now it's time. We've got all the pieces cut out, we've got everything scored and folded, and now it's time to decorate. So I'm setting up the mats the way that they would appear on the card, and I want to create like a little background scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape all these together right next to each other, and how they would appear on the card, and then I'm going to decorate them. Well, paint them, I should say. So in order to keep them together, because I'm going to be moving them around and painting on them, etc., I just put a little bit of that tape on. So a tip for this tape, this painter's tape, you didn't see me do this, but I did do it. When I rip off a piece of tape, I put it on my clothes and get that stickiness off as much as possible. So I put this well-used towel underneath my project because I'm going to use a lot of water here, and the towel kind of draws that water from, if it's going over the edge, it doesn't soak into the paper, it soaks into the towel. So I really like to use a towel when I'm using a lot of water, and with this technique I'm using a lot of water. So I put down my first color, I put down my second color, so lightest to darkest, on this piece, and again I'm watering everything down so it's really, 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 really wet. And I'm doing that's everywhere, and there's no rhyme or reason to what I did. Now I'm spraying it with a Dawn and water mixture, and I don't know what that ratio is. I just squirt some Dawn in the bottle, add some water, and it reacts somehow where it kind of makes the paint separate a little bit, into blobs. It gives it a really cool reaction. So just dried that really fast, and now I'm going to do the bottom. So this is going to be the night sky in the back, and then the bottom is going to be the ground, the spooky ground. And I don't think I put the name of this color on. I'll have to add that. It is bronze yellow, Liquitex Basics Acrylic Bronze Yellow. This is Dylusions ground coffee that I'm putting on top of that, and I'm like, it's a ground, let's put some green on. Maybe there's some patches of grass that you just can't see because maybe it's a little dark, right? I don't know. Interest. I always go for interest. So I'm just putting that all over, and again, this is really wet, and then I'm spraying it again, and you can see how it kind of makes all the colors move. It's really bizarre. I one of these days I'll have to Google it on why it does what it does, but it somehow respects the layers, right? So you can see, even though I put all the brown on, you know, all three colors on top of each other, it definitely separated them, and I'm not sure how. So here we go, putting the puppy's ears on that I cut out. I didn't want to figure the video was long enough as it is. I didn't want to put you through me fussy cutting because it takes me forever and I hate doing it. So there's the little puppy. He's cute. And I'm getting the card, and we're going to put the mats on. So the card that I originally, this is where it's a little different, where I said earlier that I did a little different. The card originally had no back like this, and when I was looking at it earlier, I was like, I don't like this. So I decided to cut this extra panel out to kind of extend that back so it goes, you know, evenly all around. So just putting some glue on the back of the mats, and I'm going to attach those to the card. So as you can see, there's a, you know, kind of a night sky and a ground. And I love I just love it. Might not make sense, but I do like the effect and the colors and the patterns that came out of that technique with the dawn and water spray. Again, if you're going to try that, you have to make sure it's wet. If you put that on dry paint, or if you put it on paint that isn't wet, you know, that it's wet but not watery, dripping watery wet, it doesn't do anything. Sorry for the picture on this. I'm missing the camera again. So adding the mats to here, and each one's going to be the ground. And underneath the picture, or underneath the frame there. Well, the panel. Boy, losing my words again. Okay, so there you have the card mates. Now, this is the fun part, is figuring out how you want to place these things. So I was thinking about putting the pumpkin on one and the puppy on the other, but I decided that earlier that I cut underneath the puppy's arm so that I can slide it onto, and you can see it here in this picture, it's slid onto the pumpkin. So now I'm gluing it off camera. I'm gluing the puppy and sliding it onto the pumpkin because like I said, I cut underneath his arms so that the pumpkin can slide in there. And I don't know if I get close enough so you can see that or not, but yeah. So decided to put that there. You can see here, I guess, that his arm's in front of the pumpkin, and then in the back there you can see his other arm is on the back of the pumpkin. So I decided to put the pumpkin and the puppy in the middle. I really like how that orange and blue are going together. It's so pretty. Putting the hat on the pumpkin with some foam tape. And I'm standing it up, and I'm not liking how it's looking. And what I realize is that it's just flopping forward too much. I didn't like it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to glue the hat to the other panel. Let's see if that helps. And I'm still not getting the effect I like. So I said, I'm going to glue these two panels together, and then that'll give that front a little bit more stability so it doesn't flop over. So that's optional. It's another thing I did a little different. So in actuality, I only have 2 steps now, I guess you would say. So adding the bat to the moon, I think I end up removing this and moving it, but I don't know what happened to that video, if I just didn't record it. Oh, nope, I did remove it. And I decided, hey, that's panel's pretty empty. I'm going to put that little guy there. And oh, and I had the pumpkin please that I had to put on there too. So yeah, the pumpkin please saying, which is cool. Putting the tall pumpkin on the left with that stout little bat pumpkin. I don't know what I'm doing with the card here. Still fiddling with how it looks. Again, this angle is terrible for this kind of card, isn't it? I'm gonna have to work on that next time. I didn't really realize it as I was doing this. Put the short pumpkin on the front with foam tape, and I'm gluing the skull to that pumpkin. And that is the card. And I'm just showing you here how I glued that together to kind of give it stability. And that's it. This is a picture of the card close up. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Bye.